Welcome to the Hot News Channel, where we strip away the noise to analyze the day's breaking stories.
Yeah.
It is January 25, 2026.
And I have to be honest with you right out of the gate and with our listeners. Usually when we sit down to prep for these deep dives, we have a clear A story and a B story. You know the drill.
Right.
We have the big headline that everyone is talking about. And then, the noise, the static that we try to filter out for you.
A signal from the noise. That's always been the goal.
Exactly. But today, I was looking at this stack of research, the wires, the intelligence reports you sent over this morning, and I genuinely got a sense of vertigo. It really feels like the map is burning in 4 different corners at once.
It's not just you. I think if you're feeling a sense of disorientation this morning, you are reacting rationally to the data. We aren't looking at a standard news cycle today. We are looking at what feels like a systemic fracture point. I've been analyzing news and geopolitical trends for a long time. And dates like today are rare. You'd have to go back to maybe 1968 or perhaps the fall of the Berlin Wall in '89 to find a single day where the domestic social contract and the international security architecture seemed to be snapping at the same time.
That is a heavy framing. Snapping.
Well, look at the board. In Minnesota, right here at home, we have the first confirmed killing of a U.S. medical professional by federal agents during a protest. That's a domestic rupture.
A huge one.
At the exact same hour, we have an American carrier strike group steaming toward Iran in what looks like a pre-war footing.
Uh-huh.
And then quietly, perhaps most dangerously, we have what looks like the total disintegration of the North American trade alliance with Canada.
It feels like the world woke up in a different era today. You mentioned Minnesota. That's where I want to start because that is happening on American soil right now. But before we get there, let me ask you, is there a common thread here? Or is this just cosmic bad luck?
I think the thread is the collapse of the rules-based order. I mean, we've heard that phrase for 80 years. It's the operating system of the West.
Right.
Today, we are seeing the blue screen of death, whether it's due to hyper-aggressive federal policing in Minneapolis or the total exclusion of Europe from peace talks in Abu Dhabi. The old rules just don't seem to apply anymore.
So buckle up. We are going to walk through this hour piece by piece, starting with the tragedy in Minneapolis and moving all the way to, hypersonic missiles in Russia. Let's get into it.
Let's go to ground level, Minneapolis.
Yeah.
The images coming out of there are really hard to process. We are talking about the killing of Alex Prey. And I want to be very careful with our language here because we have conflicting narratives, but we also have a dead body.
We do. We absolutely do. At approximately 9:00 a.m. yesterday, Saturday morning, 37-year-old Alex Prey was shot and killed. The shooters were federal agents.
And this is a crucial detail.
It is. It was a mixed unit. ICE, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and Border Patrol, specifically CBP agents, operating within the city limits of Minneapolis.
Okay, let's pause on that for just a second because I think the who matters just as much as the what here.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Border Patrol. Minneapolis is not on the Mexican border.
Nope.
It is not on an immediate Canadian border crossing point, not in the city center.
Mm-hmm.
So why are they there?
That is the context we need to set for everyone. This confrontation didn't just happen in a vacuum. Minneapolis has been a powder keg for weeks now. Remember, this is less than 3 weeks after the shooting of Renee Nicole Good by an ICE officer in the very same city.
Right.
So the tension between federal enforcement and the local community was already at a breaking point. These agents are there because of ongoing protests about immigration enforcement, but specifically, the reports we're seeing indicate the involvement of BORTAC.
BORTAC. For those who don't know the acronym.
It's the Border Patrol Tactical Unit. You should think of them as the SWAT team for the Border Patrol.
So highly trained.
Highly trained for a very specific environment. They're trained for high-risk warrants in the desert, dealing with cartels, dealing with heavy weapons fire in remote locations. They are highly militarized.
And not for this.
They are not trained for crowd control in an American suburb on a Saturday morning, and that mismatch of training and mission is arguably a key factor in why Alex Prey is dead today.
So let's talk about Alex Prey himself. Because usually when we hear federal agents shoot suspect, the immediate assumption, fair or not, is that the suspect was a career criminal or someone with a long rap sheet or, an active threat.
Sure, that's the mental picture.
But the profile here is, it's jarringly different.
It really is. Alex Prey was a nurse, an ICU nurse, working at the Veterans Affairs Medical Center.
So he spent his life keeping veterans alive.
Exactly. He dealt with trauma. He dealt with people in crisis as a profession. His family describes him as a kind-hearted soul. He wasn't known to be an agitator or a radical. He was a guy who saved lives for a living.
And yet, We have the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, Christine Noem, and the on-site official, a guy named Greg Bovino, painting a picture of a monster. I read Bovino's statement, and he used a phrase that I have literally never heard in a law enforcement press release before.
I know the one you mean.
He used the phrase mass law enforcement massacre. He claimed Prey intended a massacre.
That is the official line. DHS claims Prey approached them with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. They claim he had 2 loaded magazines and this is such a weird detail, no accessible ID, as if not carrying your wallet is somehow a justification for a shooting.
Right.
They are framing this as a thwarted active shooter event. They are saying we stopped a killing spree.
And Stephen Miller jumped on this immediately.
Right away. Stephen Miller explicitly used the phrase domestic terrorist. He said Prey was a domestic terrorist who tried to assassinate law enforcement.
And that language is so important.
It's everything. When you use that language, you are stripping the deceased of their citizenship rights in the eyes of the public. You are categorizing them as an enemy combatant on home soil.
Domestic terrorists. But then we have the affidavits. And this is where the deep dive really matters.
Yeah.
You send me the PDF of the affidavit filed by a witness. This isn't a tweet. This isn't a rumor on some message board. This is sworn testimony under penalty of perjury filed in federal court. Who is this witness?
This is the game changer for the entire narrative. The witness is a 29-year-old physician, a medical doctor.
An MD?
An MD. They live in an apartment overlooking the street where this all happened. So they weren't part of the protest. They weren't chanting slogans. They were an observer looking out their window at the chaos. And their account completely, utterly dismantles the DHS narrative.
Okay, walk us through what the doctor saw, because the timeline is critical here.
So the witness account says the inciting incident wasn't Prey attacking anyone. It starts with a woman. A female protester, or maybe just a bystander, was shoved to the ground by federal agents. That seems to be the trigger.
Which we've seen on some of the footage that's been circulating. You see a woman go down, and then Prey steps into the frame.
Exactly. He intervenes. But, and this is the critical divergence point, the witness says he intervened verbally, he shouted at them, hey, what are you doing, that sort of thing. And he had a cell phone in his hand. He was filming.
Which is something we've all seen 100 times. A citizen filming the police. It's a First Amendment right. It happens every single day in this country.
And the witness is adamant about this. Prey did not brandish a weapon. The gun that DHS is talking about, the witness saw a phone.
Okay, but what about the gun? Did he have one?
Well, this is another key point. The Minneapolis police chief, Brian O'Hara, has confirmed that local officials believe Prey was a lawful gun owner with a concealed carry permit.
So he might have had a weapon on his person.
He might have. Concealed, which is his legal right in Minnesota. But having a weapon and brandishing a weapon are 2 completely different worlds. The witness says his hands held a phone.
So you have a guy, a nurse, who sees a woman get shoved to the ground. He steps in to say, hey, what are you doing? While filming, and he ends up dead. But it gets worse, doesn't it? The aftermath.
This is the part of the story that is chilling the medical community to the bone. And frankly, it should chill every single listener. The physician, witnessing this from their window, realizes a man is down and rushes out of their building. They run towards the scene, identifying themselves as a doctor. I am a physician, let me help.
That's the instinct. That's the oath.
And the agents physically blocked them. They prevented immediate medical aid from reaching the victim.
They blocked a doctor from saving a dying man's life.
Initially, yes, according to the affidavit. And when the doctor finally gets to Prey, when they are finally allowed through the cordon, they recount a scene that sounds like a war zone cleanup, not a police action in a city.
What do you mean?
The agents weren't applying pressure to the wounds. They weren't checking for a pulse. The witness claims the agents were counting bullet wounds.
Counting bullet wounds. Say that again.
Counting bullet wounds. The witness heard them. 1, 2, 3. The physician noted at least 3 entry wounds in his back.
Wait, stop there. In his back.
That is the sworn testimony. 3 wounds in the back. Now, I want you to try and square that with Greg Bovino's statement. Bovino said Prey was charging them, intent on a massacre, violently resisting.
If you're charging someone with a gun, your chest is forward, you're facing the threat. If you are shot in the back,
it implies you were turning away, or running, or shielding someone, or maybe you were already on the ground. It is biophysically inconsistent with the charging attacker narrative. You don't get shot 3 times in the spine while you are attacking someone from the front.
That detail, shots in the back, combined with counting the wounds instead of rendering aid, It suggests an execution, and I don't use that word lightly. But if you aren't trying to save the life of the person you just shot, you wanted them dead.
It suggests an operational mindset that views the citizen as a target to be neutralized, period. Not a person to be policed, not a suspect to be apprehended. A target. And this discrepancy is fueling a massive political fallout. Governor Tim Walz hasn't just issued a strongly worded statement, he has activated the National Guard.
And that's a move we usually see for riots, right? We see the Guard called in to suppress the protesters. But the reporting suggests this might be different. It almost feels prophylactic.
That is the word some analysts are using. Is the National Guard there to control the protesters, or are they there to create a buffer between the citizens of Minnesota and the federal agents?
Think about that implication for a moment. A state governor deploying state troops, potentially to protect citizens from federal law enforcement. That is a constitutional crisis happening in real time.
It is the definition of a fracture. We are seeing a complete breakdown of trust between local police and federal agencies. The Star Tribune reported that IC agents actually detained witnesses after the shooting.
Wait, they detained the people who saw what happened?
That is the report. They rounded up the eyewitnesses. And that is why the ACLU is already suing Christine Noem. When you shoot a citizen, block the doctor from providing aid, and then detain the witnesses, you are moving away from law enforcement and into the realm of regime security operations. It fundamentally changes the relationship between the state and the people.
And Stephen Miller, doubling down, calling a VA nurse a domestic terrorist, just pours gasoline on the fire. It feels like there's no middle ground here anymore. You either believe the federal government is fighting an insurrection, or you believe the federal government has become a rogue occupying force in American cities.
And that binary, that total lack of a shared reality, is why today feels like a breaking point. But unfortunately, we cannot just focus on Minneapolis, because what is happening overseas is arguably even more dangerous for the entire world.
Right. We have to pivot. We leave Minneapolis, but we don't leave the tension. We just move it about 6,000 miles east to the Persian Gulf.
Yeah.
Because just in case is the phrase of the day.
It is the phrase President Trump used, yeah.
So let's look at the hard data on this just in case. We have confirmed reports of a massive naval buildup. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is on the move. We have reports of 35 F-15s on the ground in the region. And Trump's explanation was, and I'm quoting here, we have a lot of ships going that direction just in case.
Just in case. It sounds so casual. It sounds like he is packing an umbrella because it might rain. But let's put this in context for you. A carrier strike group, a CSG, it isn't just a boat. It is a floating piece of sovereign American territory.
Right.
It brings with it 90 aircraft, guided missile destroyers, attack submarines, and enough firepower to level a medium-sized nation. You don't move a CSG as a casual gesture. That is a projection of immense kinetic power. And the Iranians are clearly reading this not as a bluff, but as an imminent threat.
They are reading it loud and clear. In fact, the intelligence coming out of Tehran via Iran International is startling. They're reporting that Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been moved
to a bunker,
a heavily fortified underground shelter somewhere in Tehran.
Which is incredibly significant. Khamenei is the center of gravity for the Islamic Republic. I mean, leaders go to bunkers during drills, sure, but this move came with a reported transfer of power protocols.
The succession.
There are reports that his third son, Masoud Khamenei, has taken over the day-to-day management of the Supreme Leader's office.
That sounds like continuity of government planning.
That is exactly what it is. They are preparing for a decapitation strike. They believe the U.S. might actually target the leadership directly. Moving the Supreme Leader to a hole in the ground means you think the roof is about to come down. But, and this is where the modern era of warfare gets so weird, they aren't just hiding, they are signaling back. They are, for lack of a better word, trolling.
The drone showcase.
Yeah.
I saw the broadcast on Iranian state TV.
It was surreal, wasn't it? They put on this whole display of the Shahed 136, the 129, the 191. These are the drones that have reshaped modern warfare. Yeah. We saw what they did in Ukraine. They are cheap, they are effective, and they swarm. But it wasn't just the hardware that was the message, it was the delivery.
There was a man in a mask, right?
A masked man looking directly into the camera lens. And he wasn't speaking Farsi. He wasn't speaking English for an international audience. He was speaking Hebrew.
Hebrew. That is incredibly specific.
He delivered a message in Hebrew, and the message was, "We are closer than you think."
That chills me. That is pure psychological warfare aimed directly at the population of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. It implies, we are inside your borders. We are watching you.
It creates paranoia. It's designed to bypass the government and speak directly to the fear of the citizen. And they coupled it with surveillance footage. The IRGC released a piece of footage claiming to be from a drone flying over the USS Abraham Lincoln.
Wait, they flew a drone over our carrier, the most heavily defended ship in the world.
That is the claim, and the footage looks compelling. Now, the Navy hasn't confirmed if it's real or if it's a simulation, but the message is crystal clear. You see us, we see you too. You are not invisible, and you are not untouchable. It challenges the entire assumption of American naval supremacy in the Gulf.
So what triggered this specific escalation? I know tensions are always high, but why now? Why send the flotilla today?
It seems to stem from a very specific claim that President Trump made regarding executions in Iran. Trump stated very publicly that he stopped 837 hangings in Iran.
837. That is a remarkably specific number.
It is. He claimed he threatened that if they proceeded with these executions of protesters, Iran would be hit harder than they have ever been hit. He believes his threat worked. He believes he stared them down and won.
Do we have any verification on that? Is there any proof that he actually saved 837 people?
Verification is impossible right now. Iranian sources haven't confirmed this narrative at all, and in fact, reports suggest tensions over the execution of protesters are still incredibly high. But the psychology here is what matters. Trump believes that the threat of overwhelming force works. He thinks he won the staring contest. So now he's bringing the hammer, the flotilla, to ensure they stay stared down.
But the region isn't just sitting back and watching. We have the Houthis Ansar Allah saying that if the U.S. attacks Iran, they will immediately renew attacks on American ships.
And we have warnings going out to the Gulf states. This is the absolute nightmare scenario for the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, and Oman. Iran has explicitly warned them, if U.S. bases on your soil are used to attack us, those bases, and by extension your countries, are legitimate military targets.
So the very U.S. presence that's supposed to be a security guarantee for these countries is actually turning them into targets.
Exactly. It completely flips the security architecture on its head. If hosting Americans gets you bombed, why would you host Americans? And speaking of flipping architecture, we have to talk about what's happening in Abu Dhabi. Because while all these ships are moving, a very different kind of meeting is happening in the UAE.
The peace talks, or at least that's what they're being called.
Trilateral talks. The U.S., Russia, and Ukraine.
And who is missing from that list?
The entire continent of Europe.
This just blows my mind. We have Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy, and Jared Kushner sitting down with Russian officials. We have reports that Ukraine and Russia even sat down without the U.S. in the room for a portion of these talks. But Macron, Starmer, Scholz in Germany, nowhere to be found.
They weren't invited.
Not invited.
Explicitly excluded. This is the United States and Russia deciding the fate of Europe without Europe. It is a return to great power politics in its rawest, most naked form. It's like the Yalta Conference, but without Churchill. The U.S. has effectively decided that the European Union is not a serious geopolitical player.
That has to be absolutely devastating for leaders like Macron, who have been trying to position Europe as a power with strategic autonomy.
It completely destroys the concept of European strategic autonomy. If you aren't even in the room when your own borders and security architecture are being negotiated, you aren't a player. You're the board. You are the terrain being fought over.
So what are they actually discussing in this room? What is the deal that's on the table?
Well, the substance is fascinating and highly technical. They're talking about de-escalation, specifically creating a buffer zone in Donbass. And they're talking about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the ZNPP.
That plant has been a flashpoint for years. It's the largest nuclear plant in all of Europe.
And the proposal on the table seems to be about splitting or sharing the electricity output between Russia and Ukraine.
How does that even work physically? I mean, you have an active front line running right through the power grid.
It implies a ceasefire line that is stable enough to allow critical infrastructure to cross it. However, and this is the key part, Russia refuses to cede control of the plant itself. They want to keep the physical ground. They're willing to sell the electricity or share it, but they keep the keys to the kingdom.
So Russia keeps the gun, but they're willing to share the electrons.
That's a great way to put it. It's a pragmatic, almost commercial arrangement right in the middle of a war. And the U.S. is discussing using drones to monitor these buffer zones. But let's be very clear here. Despite all these nice talks, the war hasn't stopped.
All right, I was just reading an analysis by Alexander Mercouris on this exact point. He pointed out that while these chats are happening in the comfort of Abu Dhabi, Russia is hammering Kyiv with heavy energy strikes.
Heavy energy strikes. Mercouris's point is that Russia is signaling that talk is cheap. They are not softening their military position just because Jared Kushner is in the room. They are negotiating from a position of advancing strength. They are literally bombing the grid while they negotiate over the power plant. It's brutal, effective leverage.
So it feels like the U.S. is trying to freeze the conflict while Russia's trying to finish it.
That is a very good way to put it. And Europe is just watching from the sidelines, probably realizing that their security guarantees from Washington might not be worth the paper they are written on.
Which brings us to the other massive pillar of the Western alliance that seems to be crumbling today. We've talked about Europe being sidelined. Now let's talk about our neighbor to the north, Canada.
The trade war.
Trump versus Canada. I never thought I'd see the day where a U.S. president threatens 100% tariffs on all Canadian goods.
It's an existential threat to the Canadian economy. We are not talking about a 10% tax on lumber here. We are talking about a 100% wall at the border.
What does that actually look like in practice?
It's a blockade. It's an economic blockade. Canada's economy is integrated with the U.S. down to the bolt and the screw. You have auto parts that cross the border 6 or 7 times before a car is even finished. Food, energy, raw materials. If you put a 100% tariff on that, trade stops. The Canadian economy would freeze in 48 hours.
And the trigger for all of this, Mark Carney.
Prime Minister Mark Carney. Now, for our American listeners who might not follow Canadian politics that closely, Carney isn't just a politician. He is a titan of global finance. He was the governor of the Bank of England. He ran the Bank of Canada. He is the ultimate Davos man. He loves the global order. He is the global order.
Which makes what he did even more shocking. He is actively pursuing a trade deal with China.
The deal is essentially this: lowering Canadian tariffs on canola seed and beef in exchange for allowing Chinese EV imports.
So Canada wants to sell its cows and its crops, and in return, buy cheap electric cars.
EVs, the BYDs, the Xiaomis, the very cars that Trump is terrified of. Trump views this as a profound betrayal. He sees North America as a unified economic fortress. If Canada lets Chinese EVs in, he thinks it's a backdoor right into the U.S. market. He said on Truth Social, and I quote, "China will eat Canada alive."
But we have to look at why Carney is doing this. Why would the ultimate Davos man suddenly pivot to Beijing?
Because Carney gave a speech at Davos at the World Economic Forum, and he did not mince words. He declared that the rules-based international order has effectively collapsed.
Collapsed. He didn't say strained or in trouble.
Collapsed. He used the word rupture.
Yeah.
He is looking at the United States, at the unpredictability, the protectionism, the Fortress America mindset, and he is saying, we can't rely on them anymore. We have to hedge our bets.
That is the ultimate adult in the room saying that the room is actually on fire.
Exactly. If the U.S. is going to be a fortress, Canada needs other friends. And China is willing to buy what they're selling. It's a pragmatic survival move. But to Trump, it looks like treason.
But Trump isn't just using tariffs. There's this bizarre storyline about Greenland that's coming back up.
The Taco theory.
Taco. Trump always chickens out.
That's the theory that's been floating around international desks, that he threatens these big tariffs or military actions, but ultimately backs down. But people are worried this time might be different regarding Greenland.
He wants to buy it again? Or is it more than just buying?
It's about hemispheric defense. The argument goes that Greenland is strategic geography for the North American continent. Trump has renewed interest in either purchasing it or asserting some kind of defense control over it. Sounds so 19th century, right? I want to buy that land.
Manifest destiny, but facing north.
And Europe, specifically Denmark and other EU nations, are reportedly threatening to fight back if there's any kind of military move.
Wait, are we seriously talking about a potential conflict between the U.S. and Europe over Greenland?
It sounds absurd, I know. But in this climate of rupture, the old absurdities are quickly becoming the new realities. The trust is just gone. Look at the reports about Germany.
Germany asking for its gold back from the U.S.
There are reports that Germany is seriously considering asking for the repatriation of its gold reserves held in the U.S.
That is the ultimate vote of no confidence in an ally.
You only ask for your gold back when you think the bank might close, or when you think the banker might steal it. That is where the relationship stands right now.
And on top of that, the AfD party in Germany is planning to sue Ukraine for $70 billion over the Nord Stream pipeline destruction.
Yes. The economic fracture is total. The Western alliance was built on two things: U.S. security guarantees and economic integration. The security guarantee is failing in Ukraine and the Middle East, and the economic integration is being torn apart by tariffs and lawsuits.
It is a complete free-for-all. And while all this geopolitical chaos is happening, the military balance of power is shifting in ways that are, frankly, terrifying.
Yeah.
We need to talk about the Oreshnik.
The Russian hypersonic missile system?
We have a detailed analysis of the recent strike. And this isn't just a bigger bomb. This is something fundamentally new.
It is revolutionary, and I do not use that word lightly when it comes to military tech. The analysis shows that the warheads separated to hit 6 distinct targets.
So it's not a dumb bomb. It's a scalpel that moves at unbelievable speed.
It proves precision guidance, but the terror of the weapon is in the physics. It's a kinetic weapon. It relies on speed, not explosives.
Explain that for the listener. How does speed equal damage without a warhead full of explosives?
It's basic physics. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. When you are moving at hypersonic speeds, Mach 10, Mach 12 hitting the ground creates an impact comparable to a low-yield nuclear weapon. It liquefies the ground, it creates an earthquake, but, and this is the key, there is no radiation.
So you can wipe out a command bunker or a factory or a carrier and not have the political fallout of using a nuke.
Exactly. It lowers the threshold for use. It's usable strategic power. And the scariest part of all this, Scott Ritter's analysis.
That the U.S. is flying blind.
Ritter claims the U.S. intelligence community has lost its eyes inside Russia's manufacturing sector. They do not know how many of these missiles Russia has. For a long time, the assumption in the West was Russia is a gas station with nukes, they can't build high tech.
That arrogance is coming back to bite us.
Ritter says the evidence suggests serial production has already begun. They are cranking these things out on an assembly line.
So we're facing a weapon we can't stop because current air defense can't hit a maneuvering hypersonic missile that hits like a tactical nuke, and we have no idea how many they have.
It creates a massive deterrence gap. The U.S. relies on carrier groups like the Abraham Lincoln heading to Iran right now. But if Russia, or Iran supplied by Russia, has hypersonic missiles that can sink a carrier, the entire projection of U.S. power becomes obsolete. A carrier is just a big, slow, multi-billion-dollar target.
That is a terrifying thought. The queen on the chessboard becomes the easiest piece to capture. And while the hardware is changing, the software, the information war, is also shifting in a big way. We have to touch on TikTok.
The new leadership there.
Adam Presser, the new CEO of TikTok's U.S. arm. And there has been a major policy shift.
The designation of the word Zionist as hate speech if it's used as a proxy for a protected attribute.
This is a huge change for a platform that has become the primary source of information, of news, for Gen Z.
And it connects right back to the Oracle deal. Larry Ellison hosting all the data on Oracle servers. There have always been deep concerns about data privacy, but now we're seeing the alignment with Israeli security interests when it comes to narrative control.
We have that quote from Netanyahu. He reportedly called the sale or control of TikTok the most important goal.
Because the information war is just as important as the kinetic war. If you control the algorithm, you control the narrative for millions of young people. By shifting the definition of hate speech, you can effectively censor a massive amount of political discourse regarding the Middle East. It's about shaping the battlefield of the mind.
So let's try to pull all of this together. It's Sunday, January 25, 2026. We've covered Minneapolis, Iran, Abu Dhabi, Canada, and the tech gap. What does this all mean when you put it on one page?
It means the Western alliance as we knew it is dead. It's not dying, it's dead. We have the U.S. fighting a trade war with Canada, its closest neighbor. We have the U.S. excluding Europe, its historic ally, from peace talks about Europe's own backyard. We have a potential hot war with Iran, where our most powerful assets, our carriers, might be vulnerable. And we have federal agents killing citizens in Minneapolis, creating a domestic constitutional crisis.
It feels like every single seam is bursting at once.
As Mark Carney said, the old order is gone. We are in the rupture. For you, the listener, this means you must prepare for a world where traditional alliances NATO, the U.S.-Canada border, the reliability of the dollar, even the safety of the police, no longer guarantees stability.
The safety net is gone. We are in free fall, and we haven't hit the bottom yet.
And here is a thought to leave you with. If the U.S. is pulling back into a fortress America, stance tariffs on everyone, seizing Greenland, ignoring Europe, what happens when the fortress starts fighting itself from the inside, like we are seeing in Minneapolis? Can an empire survive when the periphery collapses and the core is on fire?
That is the question of the decade, and we will be here to watch it burn or watch it rebuild.
We will.
If you found this analysis valuable, hit the plus or follow button on your podcast app and give us a like. Subscribe to the Hot News channel for more deep dives. Until we meet again. Goodbye.